Hi, this is Rabbi Chaim Coffman. I want to welcome you to our 27th installment of the Torah portion of the week. We're holding by Parshas Tazria. And Parshas Tazria, beginning, speaks about childbirth and the impurity of a woman after childbirth. And the main part of the Parsha speaks about saras. It's a saras, or what is sometimes explained or defined as leprosy. It's not really leprosy, maybe it's similar, but it's really a spiritual disease, and the cause of this spiritual disease is speaking Lashon Hara. So even though it's a spiritual disease, it has physical manifestations, right? So the whole question exactly when a person became pure or impure, they had to go to the Kohen, and the Kohen would check them if the symptoms disappeared, right? So then they could be part of the Jewish people. If not, then they had to be separated again until these symptoms or whatever went away. So we're probably going to speak quite a bit about that. So the Torah says in chapter 13, verse 1, it says, Hashem spoke to Moshe and Aaron, saying, person will have on the skin of his flesh a se'es, or a sapachas, or a beheres. It will become a tzara'as, affliction on the skin of his flesh. He shall be brought to Aaron the Kohen, or to one of his sons, the Kohanim. So here the Torah says, if he has any one of these things, a se'es, a sapachas, or a beheres, right? There are three different things that can happen to a person if he gets this disease or this condition called tsaras, or as here as they translate it, the tsaras affliction. So it's an affliction to the skin of his flesh, and he's going to be brought to Aaron the Kohen, or to one of his sons, the Kohen. So there are a few things there. The first thing is that the Torah speaks about this skin affliction. Now, the commentaries bring out this affliction is brought about by the transgression of Lashon Hara, about speaking badly against other people. Now, there's a lot written on the subject of Lashon Hara, and the Chofetz Chaim has a monumental work on the laws of Lashon Hara. Basically, he wrote up this work not to tell you that you're not allowed to speak, right? The purpose of what he wrote was to teach you how to speak. Now, not everything, obviously, is forbidden to speak, but it is complicated, and they have books in English on the topic. You can go to artscroll.com or feldheim.com. It's called A Lesson a Day, right? Chofetz Chaim, A Lesson a Day, and you go through like 2 halachas a day, and it's in English. There's usually a story there. So there are different situations that a person can be put in that would be considered Lashon Hara, or maybe not, or whatever the case is. But for sure there's a tremendous merit in learning these laws. Because it'll teach you how to speak properly and not speak against others. And we'll go into detail a little bit about that. You have to keep in mind that the temple was destroyed. Second temple was destroyed because of sinas chinam, unlawful hatred one to another, and Lashon Hara. So in the last generation, it's been a big thing all over the world, to learn, the laws of Lashon Hara and implement them in your life. Now, the Chofetz Chaim, as is brought down, as my Rebbe, Rav Gordon Ramosha Stor Mokshlita, may be well, said in the name of his Rebbe, Ramosha Schneider, the famed Rosh Yeshiva of Eitz Chaim in London. He was a student of the Chofetz Chaim. Now, he went to see the Chofetz Chaim once, and when he went to speak to him, one of the things he asked him was that he wrote this monumental work, as we mentioned, on the laws of Lashon Hara. And he said, how come you didn't write that a person who speaks Lashon Hara, they lose their portion of the world to come? So the Chofetz Chaim agreed, that it is brought down. That it is brought down, a person who speaks Lashon Hara loses their portion of the world to come. Now, obviously, that has to be clarified. If someone spoke Lashon Hara once, twice, 3 times, etc., you don't automatically lose your portion of the world to come. Over there, it's talking about someone who's a habitual speaker. Someone who's a habitual speaker of Lashon Hara, yeah, they lose their portion of the world to come because they don't care. They're apathetic. They want to speak against other people. To them, it doesn't matter one way or the other. So they continually do it, and that's one of the 4, or it's 3 or 4. I don't remember. It's one of the groups that do not bask in God's glory in the world to come. Right? That's bad. We all agree, hopefully, that that's certainly bad. So we know the severity. So Ramosha Schneider, sorry, before I get to that, Ramosha Schneider asked his Rebbe, why didn't you put it in the book? Why didn't you write it in the laws of Lashon Hara that if you speak Lashon Hara, you lose your portion of the world to come? So Rabbi Chaim answered, he said, if I would have put it in there, and people would see that if you speak Lashon Hara, you lose your portion of the world to come, they wouldn't be able to uphold it. They wouldn't be able to live, simply. Reason is because they would say, well, it's so hard to speak Lashon Hara, and anyone who speaks Lashon Hara loses their portion of the world to come. Well, I do transgress it. Not a habitual speaker, but, it's too hard. Right? I do transgress it, and if I transgress it then, what's the point? I'm going to lose my portion of the world to come anyway. I might as well throw all of it out. Because it's too hard to keep. It's too hard to do. So the Rabbi Chaim said, that big of a smack, or that big of a patch, as we say in Yiddish, I'm not willing to give to people, because that will allow them to not do anything. They'll just say, it's too hard, I can't live, I do speak against others, I do try hard not to, but, what can we do? We're human, we make mistakes. So the Rabbi Chaim said that far I wasn't willing to go. So then people say, well, it is really hard. Because you're put in different situations. And when you're put in different situations, it always makes it impossible to speak. Again, the Rabbi Chaim wrote his work not telling people, that you're not allowed to speak. He said you're allowed to speak. You have to know how to speak. And a lot of times people speak against others, for no reason. It's brought down that someone speaks Lashon Hara against someone else. What's the reason he's doing it? It's something that you do that you get absolutely zero benefit from. Right? A person, you might get satisfaction from it, but the reality is you don't get any benefit. If you speak against somebody, the only benefit really that you get is you feel better. You're making yourself look better at the expense of others. Right? That's so bad. That's the whole point. It's such a severe thing that when you do it, you don't even think there's anything wrong. Everybody does it. Right? It's the way of the world. You see how people talk on TV. You see what people say over the internet, on blogs, other things. This one ripping the other one to shreds, and this one saying something else, and then answering back, and it could be, something innocent. You didn't even have intention for it. For example, one of the laws of Lashon Hara is you're not allowed to overly flatter somebody. Just say, the good points of someone, in a certain way, that someone there will say, oh, you think he's so great? So you have to be careful. Because if you over-flatter, that could cause someone to speak badly against the person. So you might say, what are you talking about? If I want to say how smart he is, how much he knows, what a mensch, what a good person he is, how he interacts with people, what happens if he has a negative interaction with someone? Or a negative experience. A person's praising that person. You don't think if a person's there, he's going to speak up against him. But you say that wasn't my intention. You're right. It wasn't your intention. even if it wasn't your intention, but somebody comes out against this person, speaks badly against them because you're saying too many good things about them, that's forbidden. So you have to be careful how you say something, when you say it, etc. Again, it doesn't mean you're not allowed to speak. You have to know how to speak. So in this case, where the laws are so stringent, and the only reason somebody really does it, even if it's true, and we'll speak about that in a second, even if it's true, you don't gain. You're not trying to take away his business. You're not whatever it is. You have nothing personal to gain except one thing. You're putting the other person down and you're making yourself look better. And again, that is the way of the world. Everybody does it. Right? The more you speak badly against others, or the more cynical you are. Right? Isn't it true more people are going to like you? At least in the secular world. Everybody does it. Comes along the Torah and says, you're not allowed to do it. Not only that, there are over 30 prohibitions every single time. And you kill 3 people in the process. You kill yourself, you kill the person you spoke about, and you kill the person who is listening. Now, if somebody's there listening, and someone's disparaging someone else, let's say the information is true. Irrelevant. If the person is just speaking against this person for no reason, then the person there, even if it's true, he can't believe it. That's a hard thing. In other words, if someone speaks against someone else and you're sitting there, A, you can't answer, because obviously you're going to be speaking against this other person. And B, you're not allowed to believe it, whatever's said. Again, even if it may be true. So then you ask the $1 million question, what am I supposed to do? If you can change the subject, fine. If you can't change the subject and you're stuck there, you have to have a doubt in your mind. You have to have a clear doubt in your mind, maybe it's not true. Give the person the benefit of the doubt. If it's a normal person, right, then we have to give them the benefit of the doubt. If this person does more wrong things than good things, you don't necessarily have to give the benefit of the doubt. So in this case, you guard yourself by not fully believing it. At the same time, you have a doubt in your mind. But if it's something that could potentially damage you, you're allowed to take precautions against it. There are also conditions what you're allowed to say if you're giving over information. Right? If you're speaking badly against someone, for whatever reason, there are certain conditions that have to be made. Right? Because if you're saying something, A, you have to hear it firsthand. Can't hear it secondhand. You need to hear it firsthand. You need to give it over exactly the way it was said. You can't add or subtract anything. It has to be a benefit. There has to be some sort of benefit. People use that, that permissibility, like you drink water during the day. Oh, it's a toelis. It's a benefit. I need to say this. Probably most times it's not. And therefore it's classified 100% as, as Lashon Hara. So, another thing about Lashon Hara most people don't know is the fact that people say, well, everybody knows it and it's true. So let's say it's true. Let's say for argument's sake it is true. Does that give me the right to tell it to someone else? You tell me it's in the newspapers. It's all over. Everybody knows. Just because everybody knows doesn't mean I have the right to go and say it. They might say, "What are you kidding me?" But everybody knows it. Who am I hurting over here? It's it's something that's already known. I would say it in front of 3 people. Right? There are a ton of people who know about it. So what? Who cares? God says I care. Because even if it's true and there's no benefit, there's no reason why you're saying it. Why isn't it Lashon Hara? Why isn't it Lashon Hara? So if you'd ask most people, they'd say, this is the craziest thing I ever heard. That everybody knows I'm not allowed to repeat it. So you have to ask yourself, why are you repeating it? Are you repeating it because you want to make fun of someone? Are you repeating it because it makes you look better? Ask yourself the question. And then see if some of the conditions we mentioned fit into this, and therefore would be permitted. So I have to be very careful when it comes to social media, and I've spoken about this a lot recently. All the more so. Right? All the more so you have to be careful. Because if you print something where billions of people see it, and you word it in such a way where someone gets offended, or let's say someone disagrees, but they disagree vehemently, and then they start, trashing you at the same time. So you'd ask yourself, do I have to worry about that? So the answer is, if a person's asking a question, you give an answer. You want to give an answer that's crystal clear as much as possible. No ambiguities. If you're going to do this, this is the way to do it. No ambiguities. Right? Make it clear, to the point. Person can't have doubts on what you said. If they say, could you clarify this? So clarify it. But you have to take a lot of things into consideration. And when you say it, could possibly somebody get offended by it. And if someone gets offended by it, what happens? They're going to say all these things, and millions of people are going to see it, and then you're going to sit there and try and answer it and defend yourself. And you feel like, there are people out there, they feel like they have to defend the world. When I was becoming religious, so I always thought when people said things, let's say family members, that since I'm the one who represented Torah, right, in my family, I don't have anyone religious in my family, but I'm the one who represents Torah. In my family, and people, let's say, are disparaging Torah or making fun, do I have an obligation to answer? Sometimes you may have an obligation to answer, right, just so it doesn't become a desecration of God's name. Other times, you just walk away. Whatever you say will be used against you. People may get offended. You might say, who cares? They offended me. Right? I'll take revenge. Right? A lot of things. The snowball effect of what this does. Brings about machloikis. Disagreement between people, then people disparage other people. We got plenty of that in our community, unfortunately. My Rebbe's bigger than your Rebbe. Really? No, he's not. Yes, he is. No, he's not. And that's how things start. They start for stupid things. I mean, they may start from something that may be important or whatever, but, at the end of the day, once this argument's still going on for a long time, people forget what they're arguing about. So, you have to be careful when to do that, when to stand up for truth. Sometimes you will have an obligation. You have to know when. And just because Torah is being disparaged doesn't necessarily mean you have an obligation to answer. It may annoy us. It may pain us. But you have to think, what is going to be accomplished? They're going to say worse things about Torah. You're gonna lose your cool, say things you shouldn't say. Right? Just a trap by the Yetzer Hara. Say, go ahead, dig. Go ahead. Hit them. They deserve to be hit. Look what they said. Look how they said it. Look how offensive it is. That may be true. But you see, you're better than that. We're all better than that. If I had a dime for all the stupid things I've seen people write, when it comes to Torah, and they'll defend it to the two, it's a waste of time. An absolute waste of time. So, I'm not gonna, harp on this too much, because I brought this out in other places. But it's something you really, really have to be careful about. Think before you speak. Right? That's what the Chofetz Chaim wanted. He didn't want people to make knee-jerk reactions and just say whatever they wanted to say. Before you say something, think. Should I say it? Are there ramifications for what I'm going to say? Do I care? Does it matter? Yeah, it matters. It absolutely matters. Because you can destroy reputations. So if it's something egregious, you have to ask a proper rabbinic authority. If it's absolutely heresy. The person denies God. People have asked me many times, do I have an obligation, if I came out of Christianity, do I have an obligation to answer up, these Christians? No. Most of the time, it's a waste of time. If you get in an argument and say, wow, it's a great website, go to Rabbi Tuvia Singer, right? He's got all this information, take a look at it. Move on. You're not going to get anywhere. Probably just a lot of aggravation you don't need. Someone's going to say, oh, that's the book. Oh, great. I want to look into it. Imagine someone asks a person, ask a rabbi about, where was God during the Holocaust? Say, really? That's really your question? I got a great book for you to read. It's called Hasidic Tales of the Holocaust. It tells about great stories about people persevered and still believed in God, and still were intact. Right? It goes through a lot of things about the Holocaust. Interested in reading it? And they're like, oh, no, I'm just, it's just a question I ask rabbis. Makes them fidget. Well, okay. I can watch the hair I don't have on my head grow. I got better things to do. You want to waste my time? Goodbye. I go bother someone else. So if they're not going to, they're not interested in the answer, and they're only going to make fun of you, move on. What do you need it for? So people can trash you more? People can say negative things? You have to be very, very careful. What to say and what's permissible to say. These laws have to be going over once, twice, 3 times, 8 times. They're incredibly important. We're still getting the effects of the destruction of the temple from this. We haven't learned. And as we see from our own infighting within the Jewish community, it's awful. People will say, I have a right to do it, and it's permissible, and this. People don't know. It's an extremely severe thing. There's hope, even though the Rabbi Chaim agreed that a person would lose their portion of the world to come. If they're a habitual speaker of Lashon Hara, you can still do tshuva. You still have the ability to do tshuva, to repent if it's done properly. So we speak about others, God forbid. We belittle people, we make fun, even joking. Oh, I'm just kidding. Well, just kidding doesn't mean it's permissible. You're not allowed to speak Lashon Hara against yourself. It's brought down. There's so many things, so many intricacies. I saw someone put up, a whole answer, somebody, one after another why it's permissible, why what he was doing wasn't speaking Lashon Hara. I mean, it's clear. What was there was to disparage another group. No question about it. Whether they deserved it or not, it doesn't matter. Don't do it in a public forum. Don't do it, don't do it in private. Don't speak about it. Like, again, if it's something egregious, it's idolatry, it's murder, it's something else, you got to protect others from it. It's one thing. But you're not allowed to disparage people. You're not allowed to call out, a group and say, well, they do this, that, and the other thing. That's called racism. Right? If a person would say, all Jews do X, that's racism. Right? They run the media. That's racism. All blacks steal. That's racism. All rabbis cheat. Got to be careful what you say. Got to be careful where you say it. As I'm always fond of saying, there's a 614th commandment, don't be stupid. There's also a 615th commandment, don't be a moron. Think. God gave you a brain, don't waste it. See, even if people deserve it and we think they do, which we may be right, God runs the world. God will take care of who He needs to take care of. It's not for us, to walk with a big stick. Defending God. God doesn't need us to defend him. God can defend himself pretty well. Again, there are times we may need to stick up for Torah. That is true. But you need a rabbi to tell you that. You need a gadol. You need a Torah giant to tell you. That's a serious thing. We act on emotion. There are things that we say we may have said 20 years ago in a knee-jerk reaction, or it got treated in a different way than the way you wanted it to come out. Regardless, it can be held against you. Point in case. Give one of my own examples. I said something more than 20 years ago, more than 25 years ago, probably, give or take. Showing my age, a little bit of gray here. Gonna cut this gray off soon. But I made a statement, and the person took the statement and said, "Oh, you said this, so it's like this." I said, "But I didn't say that. I said I felt like X, not that I was X." So years later, every so often that gets thrown in my face. And my response is always the same. But I didn't say that. That's not, I meant this, not that. I said I felt like. I didn't say I was. It's a big difference. I didn't say this is halacha Moshe Sinai. This comes from heaven. I said I felt like. It's a feeling. It's a personal feeling. What did the person say? But you said this. You want to talk to a brick? You move on. See, I don't even learn my own lessons. Half the time when I make these videos, I'm talking to myself more than anyone else. We fall into that trap. It wasn't intentional. But it got misconstrued. And then it comes back to bite you. So we have to be careful what we say. Right? Can't make fun of people. Can't belittle people. Right? Can't make them feel like a piece of dirt, like they don't know anything. You have to show respect. The greatest disagreement in the history of the Jewish people were between the house of Hillel and the house of Shammai. All over the Talmud you say, Beis Hillel omer kacha, Beis Shammai omer kacha. Beis Hillel says this, Beis Shammai says that. And then Beis Hillel will say to Beis Shammai, if you think like this, then it should be like this. And then Beis Shammai will answer to Beis Hillel, if you think like this, we know the halacha is going to be like Beis Hillel, not like Beis Shammai, except in certain cases. So you say, but look, even they had a disagreement. All over the place. True. Says the Mishnah in Perkei Avos, says in Ethics of Our Fathers, a disagreement for the sake of heaven was between Hillel and Shammai. For the sake of heaven. If they really disagree with with each other so much, like to the end, then the Mishnah in Yevamot says that the students of Beis Hillel married the students of Beis Shammai. Boy, if they hated each other, that would never have happened. You can agree to disagree. But the bottom line is you have to show respect. Can't lose your cool in an argument. Can't call anybody names. Also transgress a Torah prohibition. You can't destroy someone's reputation. Or try. Or call them out. That's Motzi Shemra. It's causing a bad name to them. Yeah, that's also pretty bad. People do it for the sake of Torah, for the sake of truth. But it's true. So you call someone out, that's permissible. Act like a 2-year-old. That's permissible. I'm always fond of saying that, if it comes to Jewish law, and there are different sides, we can discuss, what the Ashkenazim hold, what the Sephardim hold, what the Hasidim hold. If it's different in philosophy, if you want to know why I don't say the Thanksgiving Psalms, Hallel, on Yom Ha'atzmaut, on Israel Independence Day, and why I don't hold of the state, of Israel, even though I've lived here 20 out of the last 23 years, we can discuss it. You want to be more of a Zionist? Wave the flag? Okay. You want to know why I don't? I'll tell you. So we can discuss it. You want to disagree? Okay. Move on. But you have to show respect. If it's something in philosophy, you can disagree. You can go in different directions. If it's something like, no, I don't believe that idolatry is forbidden, okay, we're going to disagree over here. Right? One of the big three you have to give up your life for is a Jew. That we'll disagree on. If it's something that's heresy, you got to fight against it. If it's something that uproots Torah, yeah, we're not going to just sit here, lie down, and let it go. If it's something egregious, I understand. But if it's something in philosophy, you don't hold of it, move on. So what? They want to sing and dance a little more, they want to do this, okay. But you don't do it. You're right, I don't do it. Sue me. So what? Did I transgress a Torah prohibition? Did I transgress a rabbinic prohibition? Right, so now you're going to call me out? And now you're going to say, well, you just don't get it. You don't get it. So, alright, I don't get it. Thick, doo-doo-doo. I'm a wacko. I don't get it. Alright, I don't get it, so what? Makes me a Russia. Right, makes me evil. Can't call me up to the Torah. I should be belittled because I don't get it. Do me a favor. Move on. Make it a little more graphic. Right? We mentioned that if a person has its saras, the skin of the flesh, says the sapachas, beheres, etc., he shall be brought to Aaron the Kohen or to one of the sons of the Kohanim. Why to one of the sons? What does it mean over here? So it says, Mori v'Rebbe Rav Agon Ramoshe Stur Moshlita, maybe well. Says there's a hint over here. What's the hint? He says sometimes if a person does tshuva, he repents from his sin in order to be attached to Aaron HaKohen. He did whatever transgression, he does tshuva, he wants to attach himself to Aaron HaKohen, right? Because who does Aaron represent? He represents the man of peace. He wants to be like Aaron. Who was Aaron? Right? Aaron was one of the Gadol. He was the Gadol Hador, one of the Gadolei Hador, next to Moshe. Right? One of the like second in command next to Moshe. Would be known as one of the Gadolei Hador of the generation. So Rabbi says, you do tshuva, you repent, you want to be close to Aaron HaKohen. Sometimes it's better. Sometimes it's enough to be close to one of his sons. Right? Because the Torah says to Aaron or one of his sons. Right? It could be specifically one of his sons is better. That maybe he's less in stature than his father. Maybe he learns more, he learns better from him in how to do tshuva, let's say. So my Rebbe here says, you always need to ask a Rav, a rabbi, who's fitting to teach you. according to where you need to be, according to where you need to grow. You need someone who can get you to that next, to that next level. Someone you relate to. That's a good way to put it. Someone who you relate to, you can speak to. They understand where you're coming from. Right? Even though, as my Rebbe here says, even though they're greater people than him, they're greater rabbis than him in that generation. But it could be he'll be successful with this rabbis on a lower level. Why? Because he can speak to him at his level. He can speak his language. He knows where he's coming from. You don't need the Gadol Hador for that. You don't need the greatest rabbi, one of the greatest rabbis of that generation. You need someone less than that. And if they get you to the next level and help you to reach level after level after level, so what's wrong with that? All right, nothing wrong with that. Some people may want to go for the top. Right, so when I met my Rebbe, I wanted to go for the top. And I stuck by. Like glue. Even though he probably wishes I didn't have glue, maybe like silly putty, so he'll push me aside. But, I wanted the best. The best of the best. It wasn't easy. But I saw things that most people who grew up religious never see in their lifetime, or 10 lifetimes. But it has to be someone who you can handle. Someone who understands you. I mean, there are a number of times, he said something to me and like a whammo. Well, he just whacked me upside the head with something. But you're talking about someone who's like way up to here, and I'm like way down here. Like most people compared to him. You know what? But I crawled up. For me, it was unbelievable. These last 20 years. No question about it. But it's hard to have a relationship with somebody who knows everything about everything. And you're coming out of left field. So, as of last week when I went to see him, it was just unbelievable being in his presence. I was there for 20 minutes. I always say it's too bad I don't have I never bring a camera. I'm kind of like the court jester. Walk in, I'll tell something and just burst out laughing. Be in the middle of learning or whatever. I have all these books on, just sit there and laugh. Right? So it's a unique thing. Definitely a unique thing. But be that as it may, you need to go to somebody who you respect. Someone who understands you. That person could be way up here, or that person could be down here. But it's someone you relate to. Somebody that can guide you properly. Someone has the ability to do so. But the Talmud tells us that a person can only learn under someone if in their mind they represent an angel. They're like an angel. If they're not an angel in your eyes, you can't learn from them. The rabbi's got tremendous responsibility. And you could fake it, but people see through that. Right? You can't fake what you know, what you don't know. I mean, you could in theory. Some people may not know the difference. Or you make yourself out more than what you really are. There's a lot of fraud out there. No question about it. See, but if he's not an angel, you can't learn from him. Where do we learn this out from? We learn this out from Rabbi Meir and Acher, Rabbi Elisha ben Abuya. Right, Talmud says that Elisha ben Abuya became a heretic. One of the Sanhedrin became a heretic. The whole story. How he became a heretic. But Rabbi Meir still wanted to learn from him. So Gemara asks, how could you learn from him? He's a heretic. So he says, I peel away the shell, I get to the essence. Right? I get to the essence. So I take out the bad part, and I learn from the good. So then it asks this question. But you can't learn from him. Right? In general, it should be forbidden. So one of my rabbis once told me that he learned under someone for a short amount of time. And he said this person was an unbelievable genius. Unbelievable genius in rabbinic law. Things backwards, sideways, forwards. With tremendous understanding, level upon level. But he said his character traits were horrible. Absolutely horrible. And he said there are things that he saw he couldn't swallow, and that was it. He didn't last very long. But the person was an absolute genius in Torah. See, but you can't be Aristotle. You can't have all this knowledge, and then do all these terrible things. Right? Judaism doesn't work. Can't compartmentalize. Today I'm the Torah scholar, and now I'm the despicable, person who does X, Y, or Z. The person has to be compared to an angel. If you don't look at him like an angel, you can't learn from him. Right? The same thing Rabbi Meir from Elisha ben Abuya. That was the whole question. How can you learn from him? Look what he does. Look how he acts. Right? Someone can only be a rabbi, right, if who they are on the outside is who they are on the inside. Or vice versa, let's say it better. What they are on the inside evokes who they are on the outside. If you see a contradiction, doesn't mean people don't make mistakes. If you see a contradiction, run. That's not the person for you. We all have bad days. We all get upset. We do things we shouldn't do. You want to teach other people? You got to set the bar. Doesn't mean you can't have a bad day. Doesn't mean people are going to agree with everything you say. You have detractors. Right? If they're always doing a good thing, then you have detractors. As in the Likutei Maharan of Rav Nachman of Breslov says, it's always good to have detractors. That means that what you believe in has to be that much stronger. So my Rebbe said, tongue-in-cheek, he said, I can't say I have a lot of Hasidim, a lot of people follow me. People against me? He said, I got plenty. Right? So if you're doing a good thing, you have detractors. You can't worry about, what people are going to say. You're going to have detractors. You're going to answer all of them. What are you going to answer them for? One way it can make you look greater. Could be. Right? Knock them off. Maybe. It's going to get you aggravated. And if it's something that doesn't really matter anyway, what are you going to start with? What in the world are you going to start with? If it's something egregious, again, you have to defend yourself. You have to know how, you have to know when. So when we talk about somebody who's going to have a rav, who's going to have a rabbi, who's going to guide them. It's got to fit this criteria. Right, but there's another thing. I spoke about this in last week, my Sunday class, quite a bit, so I'm not going to harp on it too much. I'll just mention one thing. And that is, whoever teaches others, if you want to know if they're legit, right, again, one thing I spoke about also, my video on pitfalls, in conversion. Spoke about the community and finding a rabbi. And all this overlaps. Very easy to find material here. But, one of the important things is, where'd they come from? Where'd they learn? Who did they learn from? Who do they continue to learn from? I.e., we call it credentials. You can't produce credentials. You hide credentials. You say, I got my sources. Yeah, what are they? I have them. What does that tell you? It tells you something being hidden. Or, Even if they do have a source doesn't want to be known. I've seen that also. People say, yeah, I agree with you, but I can't support you publicly. Had that happen to me. It was something a number of years ago. People said, I'm glad you did what you did, but we cannot support you publicly because of what this person has done. So we call that the silent backing. Kind of like Saturday Night Live. We're going to do a silent cheer. Louder! Louder! Right? So we back you, but we can't say anything. That's worth something. I'm not going to say it's worth nothing. Just means you have no backbone. It means you don't have a munah. But they were afraid of this person, which I think they had a right to be. Even so, major red flag. Produce the source. You got a source? Show it. You got a resume? Put it down. I know somebody, resume yay long, 40 years helping other people, blah, blah, blah. One major thing missing, that source. Person can do a lot of good work. I'm not saying not. But that should scare the heck out of somebody. Out of most people. Because that means they're doing things on their own. Says the Mishnah Perkei Avos, right? You have to know when to say I don't know. You have to know your place. Some rabbi was at a funeral, someone came up to him and said, "Oh, Rabbi, I see you don't have your book. Here, I have a book for you." And the person looked at him. And he said, "I don't need your book. I write books." What kind of answer is that? Person wasn't trying to show him up. Well, the Lashon Hara, he said, "I see you don't have your book, so I have a book for you here." Call that ego. I need your book. What do you think I am? I write books. I don't need you. Oh, you don't agree with this? Oh, you don't get it. I don't need you. Goodbye. That's what people do. Say, oh, you disagree with me? And most people say, fine, so disagree with me. We live in a very weak generation. Most people don't have tremendous self-esteem. They got to build self-esteem. There are people out there got big egos. That's true. That's definitely true. A lot of people don't have such self-esteem. So what do they have to do? They have to build themselves. So once there's a disagreement, oh, you disagree with me? Okay, you're out. Oh, but don't you see it like this and like this? No. Okay, you're out. What happened to Beis Hillel Beis Shammai? Talking about a Torah prohibition? Talking about you're a heretic? Talking about you don't believe in Torah min hashamayim? You don't believe God gave the Torah? Like, what are you? I don't need you. You don't see what I say? You're out. It's not exactly what God wants from the Torah. We should strive to be like Beis Hillel Beis Shammai. We can agree to disagree, that's fine. If it's something egregious, as we mentioned, okay, then it's something else. You want to talk idolatry? You want to talk murder? You want to talk about, desecrating Shabbos? Or something? And you're on the other side and, okay, so that's something real. Alright, that goes against Jewish law in a major way. Then I can understand. Still, you're not allowed to make fun of someone. You're not allowed to belittle them. If someone is truly evil, might be permissible. It's not a good idea. Who gives you the right to do that? Nobody. So you pick someone to learn from, whether, they're a Torah giant, or below, or in the middle, or whatever. See how they act. See how they talk to others. If they talk to others like a mensch, like somebody should, they show respect. You want to emulate what they do, that I hear. But someone can have the most knowledge in the world, or not even. Can have a certain level of knowledge, just be a horrible person. Anger, other things. Not a person to learn from. That's what the Gemara in Chagiga says. He's got to be similar to you like an angel. And if he's not similar to you like an angel, and again, he doesn't have to be the Gadol Hador. He does not have to be the greatest rabbi of that generation. He can be somewhere in the middle, somewhere towards the bottom. But if he can get you to the other side, if he can inspire you, and he can get you to change and to work on different things, and you're going to grow tremendously, so you can take someone smaller. You don't have to hit the top. You may not have anything in common with someone at the top. Well, that's the goal. Find somebody who's got the ability to influence, has the credentials, and has the character traits. If they don't have the character traits, everything else is irrelevant. So I also give classes online. People who want to convert, take a look at my Facebook fan page, Beyond Orthodox Conversion in Judaism. Take a look at my blog. It moved at orthodoxconversion.com. And anyone who wants to, I also have a page for Noahides. Anyone who wants to be a Noahide, they can contact me at my Facebook page at Beyond Noahides. And I also give a class on Derech Hashem, the Way of God, by the Ramchal. Once a week, has nothing to do with conversion. Anyone interested in that can also contact me, Rabbi Chaim Coffman, at gmail.com. RABBICHAIM COFFMAN at gmail.com. Everybody have a great Shabbos.